Determinants of foreign policy. There are some external determinants and internal determinants of foreign policy. We will discuss it one by one. So first of all, I will discuss external determinants of foreign policy. There are some points including power structure, international organizations, reaction of other states, world public opinion, and the last one is alliances. There are many other also determinants, but I have chosen some of them and added in my lecture. So first of all, power structure. Basically, these are the external determinants. So these are not related within a state. It is at international level. So power structure means like if we look at the world, so we would see that the country which is in power, which is superpower, it has impact over all the activities of the countries, whether they entered into an agreement or other at international level. So the power structure matters. It really affects the foreign policy. Then comes international organizations. At an international level, there are some organizations. Similarly, the organizations at national level, they have their own opinions, and international organizations, they have their own opinions, own agendas, have own suggestions. They have their own impact over the foreign policy, and many states, different states have different reactions over the treaties or any other thing in which, or in a memorandum in which other countries enter. Different states have different reactions. Some have good reactions, some have bad reactions, some have like they don't like the treaties, they don't like the statements, they don't like anything, so they can withdraw themselves. So world public opinion, then comes basically alliances, then comes alliances, the countries that, for example, if there is a group of two countries at international level and some countries are supporting one country and some countries of the world are supporting the other party. So these are the alliances that that countries are supporting the two parties that are alliances. They have their own opinions according to their situation and according to their choices. So the external determinants of foreign policy have their own impact over the foreign policy, and they can change the foreign policy, they can mold the foreign policy, they can amend the foreign policy, they can make new foreign policy, and they have their own impact. Then comes internal determinants. Internal determinants means within a state factors. The internal factors have their own impact over the foreign policies, and these are historical influence, natural resources, economical development, military power, population, role of media, think tanks, good governance and leadership, political organization. So basically, within a state, if we talk about, they have their own population. It might be more population, it might be low population. Media is strong enough that it is considered to be the fourth organ of the state of any country, and the think tanks, they have their own opinion. So it can also, this factor can also have impact over the foreign policy. And if the governance and leadership of any country is good, are strong, and have impact over the public of that country, then it will have, this factor will have good impact over the foreign policy. The political organization, for example, if a party that wins the vote and comes into the government, and they have their own motors, they have their own agendas, they have their own targets, and they have so this factor will have their own impact over the foreign policy in that era. And the natural resources, for example, the economic development, the military power, all these factors that are working and changing in a country, they have their own impact within a country, and these they would have their own impact over the foreign policy that are dealing. Historical influence means in history, if the internal factors have proved to be the best impacts over the foreign policy, then that would be considered. The historicals, the precedents would be seen that what is the relation between the history and the foreign policy. Then if there is a suggestion or unsolved, So the help might be taken from the history, and that would influence, that factor would influence the foreign policy. The natural resources, for example, if a country has natural resources, rich in natural resources, that would have good impact. They can make any dealing, they can make any agreement, so that like foreign country that for example Pakistan can say, for example, Pakistan is rich in minerals and like coals and other resources. It can ask any other country who is interested in Pakistan to make an investment in some specific area of Pakistan that is rich in natural resources. So Pakistan can take money in return, and that country would be given a chance to to make an investment over that area. So in this way, this factor has a good impact over the foreign policy. So in the end, I would say that both internal and external factors and determinants have their own impact over the foreign policy. They can change the foreign policy, they can amend the foreign policy, they can regenerate the policy. So they have their